Hello everyone, my name is Marciano Putra Sinurat. My register number is 180 70 50 87. Now I'm on to talk about can stylistic improve someone's linguistic competence and performance. Okay, first of all, studying stylistic is just like the process of language learning and the subsequent discipline that comes with it. Language learning is particularly challenging for most people, especially to those who are trying to acquire at this later age. Just like any other language, the English language requires the learner to read English book extensively, try their level best to understand the language with the other teacher, dictionary, and practice speaking language as much as he or she can. In regard to this essay, there are several ways how to study of linguistics can help improve students' English language. Firstly, stylistic enriches students' way of thinking about language. Secondly, it improves their skill of English. And finally, stylistic propels students to act linguists and literary critics at the same time, which in turn make the competent user of their language. And one way how stylistics specifically plays a role in enriching students of way of thinking about language is, for example, when poets write poetry, they're not writing it without their consciousness of language. Sometimes they deliberately incorporate deviation and parallelism in their work to serve a specific function. Through this unconventional use of language, they are attempting to convey a deeper meaning with the text, and most statisticians argue that only one stylistic, this literary device, can be observed, analyzed, and understood. Where some advocate extensive or authentic reading, almost for its own sake, Hall explained in 2007 as the result which of the language will be absorbed. The advocate of stylistic and a meaning of developed language proficiency is committed to the value of conscious attention to details of linguistic feature foregrounded in text, whether through deviance in some kind or simply as the consequence or repetition, parallelism, or other such silencing parentings seem to contribute significantly to meaning. How to make students understand linguistics better? Students in turn become more sensitive in utilizing English, especially when attempting to read and comprehend literature better. Secondly, statistics improve students' skill of the English language. This is because in order to apply stylistic analysis or criticism on a literary text, students need to first master the language from the onset. This entails the students need to, as mentioned earlier, read extensive which is to enhance their vocabulary and mental lexicon. And they also need to understand the language very well, especially in regards to grammar and tenses. For all the arguments that are presented, it is rightfully so the student need to be competent user of the English language so that they can apply their knowledge of grammar and lexicon in interpreting literary text. And also this is because according to Katie Wells in the Dictionary of Stylistic in 1990, the goal of most stylistic is not simply to describe the formal features of the text for their own sake, but in order to show the functional significance of the interpretation of the text, or in order to relate literary effect to linguistic causes where these are felt to be relevant. This means the knowledge of grammar and tenses are very important elements for the student to get a strong grasp on, because in some poetry, poets intentionally use deviation to foreground important features in the work. Researches such as Van Peer 1986 have found that readers or students do indeed pick up on smallest details of a text and use them to construct meaningful interpretation. And the conclusion is this is how learning language is similar to how learning stylistic help improve one English. As written through this paper, both disciplines require the students to read extensively, understood and practice in skill in order to improve their language competency. In conclusion, with all the argument which is presented in the discussion, Stylistic does help improve one of students' English language. Firstly, Stylistic enrich students' way of thinking about language. Secondly, it improves their basic skill of the language. And finally, Stylistic propels students to act as a linguist and literally critic at the same time, which in turn to make them competent user of the English language. Students especially can use Stylistic to sustain and defend interpretation of a poem or any little text for instance, and they can also use Stylistic of highlight element of a poem that we have otherwise fail to notice. I think that's all my presentation today. Thank you very much.